Hey guys, Stephen here, back with the second part of my Contemptor Dreadnought build. As you can see, I've got the model largely put into pose and just given a base coat of colours just to give an idea about how it's going to turn out. So I'll just bring this up to the camera so you can see in a bit more detail. Nothing is fully glued yet. I've just got the legs, the hips on a loose pin, just so that I can get the legs stable enough to see if I want to glue them in this striding position. I've made a custom base here, just grabbed a flat base and cut some extruded styrene pieces, the thick styrene, and just set that up so that I can get a more dynamic striding pose. So basically the torso part is still on a rod, so we'll be able to swivel in the finish, so we can just take that off. Arms are still posable. I've just got those tacked on to and I'll glue those when I get to the final pose. For weapon options, the arms are magnetized, so that if I want to swap those out with different weapons further along the line, I can do that. And again, I've just given it a base coat just to sort of get a feel for how it's going to look when it's all assembled. Again, the legs just set up so that they're striding. The feet are on ball sockets, so you can subtly adjust them, but I wanted to get it so that it has a fairly flat base for the waist, figuring that all the joints and hydraulics would keep the torso flat regardless of whether it's moving or not, and so it won't be over-leaning or anything like that, so you've got a stable fire platform. So the legs are in motion, but the whole torso is going to be very flat to keep it stable. So I think I'm going to go with this configuration, so I'll get to gluing those together, and I'm quite happy with how that's turned out. It was simple, very simple to put together. No real hidden drawbacks once you've got the pieces all sorted out as to what goes where. The only trouble might be getting the head in there. It's very deeply recessed, and I've just got it tacked in there for the moment. But just getting in there, you probably want to use some tweezers or something like that once you get the super glue all sorted out. But again, not really a lot to say. It's been a fairly straightforward, simple build. I was kind of expecting something a little bit more complicated, but once I got the pieces figured out, it was really not much different than just posing a regular sort of marine miniature, or maybe a little bit more subtle than the original Dreadnought models. But there's not going to be too much more as far as this goes, but in concept it all turns out pretty well. I'll just show you quickly what I did with the legs, just because I wanted to make sure everything's glued in correctly. What I did was I just where's the hips? I just used a brass rod there to pin that. The center part of the hip is very thin. It's just resin. You can see the light through there, and I just threaded the rod through, and then just into a correct sized hole, and that just meant that there wasn't quite so much wobble when I'm positioning the legs, so I could get everything lined up properly. That's just tacked on, so that's going to fall off. But aside from that, there's not really anything too complex. So if you've been looking at getting into a Contemptor Forge World, or I think the Games Workshop ones from the Battle of Calth are monopose, but it's not bad. It's got the variety and subtlety of poses that you can use, because it's got the various ball joints in the hips and the feet. The customizing of the weapons, you can see on the top of the torso here there's some blocks which can be used for other mounts, anti-aircraft mounts and things like that, so you can always add to it later. But yeah, it's been a fairly straightforward, kind of a fun little build. I was putting it off for a wee bit because I thought it might be a little bit more intense, as you might have seen in some of my other videos. The Forge World stuff has been less than smooth to deal with, but this has all been great. Everything has been cast perfectly, and even without the instructions I was able to get everything assembled pretty nicely. So the last stage will be to glue everything together and get the final details painted up, and I think I'll do a little bit more work on the base. But as for the moment, I'm pretty happy with how that's all turned out. So I will carry on with that, and might be a fairly short video series, but I'll put a final one up once everything's finished, and you can check out the final results. But so far, I'm pretty happy with how everything's turned out. Nice, fun little build, and there's still a lot of character in the model. But anyway, I'll crack on, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Have a good one.